Hi everyone, my name is Zarina Garcia and I'm the Media Fund Manager at CAAM. Thank you all so much for joining us and for tuning into our Forward Filipino Shorts program. You just finished watching Dancing on My Own and Harana here on CAAMFest FORWARD's Video on Demand. And I'm so excited to have our filmmakers and some of the cast here join us today to speak with us more about their respective films. First up, we have Dancing on My Own, which is described as a love letter to the queer Asian experience inspired by New York radical dance party Bubble Tea. I'm so happy to have us join on screen the director and writer of the film, Ali Cuerdo.
Hi, thanks so much
Ali.
for having me.
Thank you for joining us. How are you? How are you doing?
Oh, surviving. I feel like every day I wake up and I'm still alive is another achievement. So that's how I'm doing. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah, just prepping up for CAAMFest. Looking forward to talking about Dancing on My Own a little bit more. But yeah, this is such a wonderful and beautifully made film, and you were able to capture the vibrant and joyful essence of the queer Asian community through the Bubble Tea story and also your personal coming out experience. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you personally encountered Bubble Tea and how did this momentous encounter lead to the fruition of your film?
Sure. Well, since this is the Filipino Forward Shorts program,
Yes.
I do have to say a special shout out to my friend Pedro, who I lovingly call my Tito. Tito Vida is his DJ name, and he is the one who brought me to my first Bubble Tea. And
Wow.
He's also one of the founders of the whole party and of the whole collective. So the cool thing about Bubble Tea is that it's so much more, and the founders will be the first ones to say this, it's so much more than just the people who started it. It's become this like massive community and family, and honestly like a phenomenon in New York nightlife. There's really nothing like it. And honestly, I think that's the reason why it's been so successful, because it's carved out a space that we've needed for so long. We've really wanted to have a space that centers Asian Americans. Like really, it's like, we're not asking for a lot, but what we are asking for is to be able to tell our own stories and shape our own spaces. And so Bubble Tea, it is a dance party. It's a super fun dance party. There are amazing drag queens and just crazy visuals. And it's a rave. It's an underground Asian rave. But it is also this place that became a meeting point for all of us. And for me in particular, it became a place for me to find community, and my chosen family. And I think that that saved my life, honestly.
Wow. And your film was a mix of both narrative and a documentary. So it mixed those elements together. What was the thought process behind that, and what led you to kind of create it, structure your film with those elements?
For sure. So initially, the film was just supposed to be about Bubble Tea. As I'm not an actor, as you can probably tell, I'm just a person. I'm in the film as myself. My mom is in the film as herself, which to me was like, how did I get my mom to come on camera? Like, it was really a special film because it was supposed to just be a documentary. And then in the process of making it, I realized that it was my story too. And that's such a funny thing when it comes to directing and writing, is sometimes you walk in knowing what the movie's about, and sometimes you discover the movie along the way. And that's what it was for me. As I was going through the process of, the film was funded by Visco, which is this amazing, app. Some people know them for the Visco Girl phenomenon, but I actually was so impressed with them and their ability to expand kind of beyond just their platform. And they're really interested in telling stories that are not really seen a lot, which, from our community, from the Asian American community, it's we're not really seen a lot, even to this day. So they financed the film, and in the process of doing it, they were like, why are you not in it? Right. If Bubble Tea is so important, if Bubble Tea really changed your life, how come you're not in the movie? And so that was really what challenged me and made me realize, these stories aren't important just because of the moment in time or the community even that they're depicting. I mean, that's important too, but the important part is the impact. And I realized that I could show how this community impacted a real person, in this case, me. And so that's why I decided to come out to my mom on camera.
That's wonderful. And there were a lot of striking moments in the film. Specifically, one that stood out as I was watching the film was one of the founders brought up their own coming out experience and likened their experience and their family's acceptance of their identity to learning how to drive a car. And I noticed that that was something that was also in your film, especially at the very beginning where there was that funny scene with, the daughter. I'm assuming that's you and your mom, learning how to drive a car. So this is a two-pronged question. The first one being, did that interview with one of the founders inform that scene and sort of like set it as kind of made you think, okay, maybe I should include it, as part of like the narrative element in my film? And the second part is that 100% accurate? Did that actually, did the events in that scene really happen in real life?
It's a really funny story because they actually did.
Oh, okay.
So I did decide at 15 and a half, verging on 16, that it was a great idea to come out to my mom while she was teaching me to drive. And we were, of course, having an argument because I don't know if you remember, a parent or an, older person teaching you to drive. It is a stressful experience.
It is.
And so my mom would always, every time she wanted me to stop, would put her foot down as if she had the brake. And it ended up with us just like low-key screaming at each other. And in the midst of all of this, I was like, oh my God, I can't take it anymore. I have to say my truth or else I'm going to die. And so that was when I decided to do it, which is, looking back, like the worst possible time. It was crazy. But it was too funny to not include because I was like, I do have a crazy coming out story and this is it. So I wrote it actually before we did the interview. And then when we did the interview and my friend Stevie, said that about his coming out experience, I thought, wow, like here's another person who grew up in a different place and we have a very similar kind of experience. And I thought that was so cool. And so why not include that magic?
Wow. That's like, it's almost like fate or like, coincidental that how all of that kind of fell into place.
Kidlat is what I would say.
Kidlat. Oh yeah. Totally.
Lightning in a bottle for the non-Pinoys.
And, you also interviewed a lot of prominent artists in your film. And, they touched on how bubble tea has changed their experience and their, allowed them to embrace their identity and love themselves a lot more. How did you, how did you arrange them? Did they know about the film? Did you reach out to them for the film? Or were they, just sort of like in, bubble tea as you were like filming?
Sure. So we did reach out to many people from the community beforehand. The cool part about kind of being embedded in the community, I sort of saw it as like a fly on the wall, kind of, being able to first observe as a fan and then later like take part in putting the party on. I mean, that is just like the joy. One of the biggest joys of my life is to be a fan of a community and to be a fan of people, individual artists that I admire, and then later to be able to work with them. I mean, what a dream. So for me, it was so cool because I got to work with both people I admire and people that are close friends. And it was a really fun and kind of hectic experience because we filmed all of those segments on location during a 4-story rave.
Oh.
So we were filming the performances on stage and we were doing those interviews at the same time. Wow. And I was just running back and forth between the two.
Crazy.
It was so fun.
And so to like for people who are interested in learning more about bubble tea and also if they want to learn, find or catch another screening of your film, how can they follow you and how can they get more updates on the film?
Yes, of course. So since this is a little baby short, we're just doing everything on Instagram. So if you can want updates on the film, please definitely follow at Alexandra Cuerdo, which is just my name, on Instagram. And also please follow Bubble Tea. It's bubble and 4 underscores and tea. But you can just look it up and you'll find it. Honestly, we are really so honored to be able to have made this film also as a record of the work we've done in our community and as a sort of part of our history, and kind of walking in like, the great shadows of, directors like Gus Van Sant, who have, been able to really show the queer community and show the LGBT community in all of its spectrum. That's kind of what I was trying to do with this film. And so, thanks. Really hope you enjoyed the film. And whenever we're able to gather again, you're all invited to Bubble Tea.
Thank you so much, Ali, and thank you for sharing your insights on the creative process. And I'm sure your film will only continue to inspire and empower more people within the Filipinx community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So for the second part of our Camp Forward Filipino Q&A, we will be talking about another great film which tells the story of Maya, a homesick cover band singer who writes an original song to connect with her daughter who's growing up in the Philippines without her. I'm so excited to introduce on screen the director of Harana, Marie Jamora, and the cast members Michael Rosete and Anthea Neri, who played Seth and Leia in the film.
Hi.
Marie, Anthea, and Michael, how are you doing?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, no, Harana was a magical film, and it had a very great and solid soundtrack, and it's centered on music and how it can bring people together. My first question goes out to Marie. So a common theme in your films is how the power of music could bring people together, and this rings true with Harana as well. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you came up with the idea of the film and why this was set in Las Vegas during the mid-90s?
That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, I do love music, and Mike was actually in my previous film, Flip the Record, which was also at CAAM a couple of years back. And so Mike also knows how much music means to me as a writer-director. The inception of the story is I have a friend who she's writing a book about overseas Filipino musicians, and it's part of the overseas workers that come out of our country, which is our biggest export, which is our people. And most people know about the domestic helpers or the nurses and people in the medical field, but musicians, having them be one of our largest exports, for me was an amazing fact that which I had encountered in like hotel lounges or theme parks or cruise ships, wherever I was. And so knowing that and seeing that, I wanted to make like a slice of life story, which is a proof concept for a bigger story, but a short film about this particular kind of person who had to leave the country, leave family, which is what happens all the time. They always leave the country to have a better life, like to bring back remittance for their families, and they miss out on their children growing up. And so I chose Las Vegas in the 90s because I think that the 90s is a time where brown music, like music made by brown people, wasn't something very widely accepted. It was something either by white musicians or black musicians. And I wanted to have that struggle of a person who was brown, who would emulate so perfectly white or black musicians, but couldn't have a voice of their own and would have to struggle to create a song which would eventually be the connecting factor between her and her child. And the 90s was also important to me because it was a time where connection and trying to reach out to your family was difficult. Like you'd have to buy phone cards. It was very expensive. You didn't have a cell phone. And so, and I remember, I mean, I'm showing my age, but I do remember this time where I was living in the United States, had to reach out to my family. And, you would always call them at the wrong time. Nobody wanted to really talk to you. They were always busy. And I felt there was always this heartache during that. And I wanted to capture that in the short.
Well, that's so wonderful. And for Michael and Anthea, so you did such a great job playing Sev and Leia. How did you approach your characters and how did you prepare for the role in the film?
For me, it just, sitting down with Marie and just realizing that a lot of Filipinos, like Marie said, they do this. We do a lot of sacrifices, and it's for the family. It's part of our culture. It's like ingrained in us. And, there's moments there where I'm like, do you go after your dream? If you see somebody that's just like you, what do you tell them now that you're older? And, and your family, like juggling all of that and just bringing the humanity, and also from personal experience. I just drew from that, and, just, it's too close to home for everybody, I think, in all these characters, those choices that we have to play in the film. So just kind of drew from that, and through the eyes and lens of Leia, for sure.
Yeah, for me, Tagalog isn't my first language, and my parents are actually Ilocano, so it's kind of twice removed. So it's familiar enough where I knew the language, but it's a totally different language. Like there are overlaps of words, obviously, but it's a totally different language. So and playing the bass, I don't play instruments at all, actually. So those were kind of just practically the two big things. And as far as the character of Sev, as everyone has mentioned, I mean, we all know people who, it's that decision, being physically present with your family is it cannot be replaced. It just cannot be replaced. But if you have a dream for that child of yours, or your relatives, or you just want a better life, you're willing to sacrifice a lot of things, and perhaps you stuff things down in order to do what you need to do. And I felt Sev was perhaps somewhat like that. All of these musicians, perhaps it wasn't their dream to be a cover band. Perhaps and Marie and I talked about it. Perhaps it was a dream, perhaps, to follow your music, but this was a way to provide for the family and do what you enjoy. So there, I think there's a lot. We don't show a lot of things sometimes, or we show things to some people and we don't to others. And I felt Sev was just kind of a person who pushed a lot of things down, and in order to survive in a way. And anything Marie does, we work together, and that one was about music as well. And it's an interesting slant, we know teachers and caretakers and stuff like that, but musicians, I thought, oh, that's interesting. Like, what? Yeah, that's a whole, and we see it all the time. Cruise ships, Vegas or anywhere, we see it all the time. So it was really cool.
Mm. And for Marie, Maya is such a relatable Filipinx migrant, character, because she relates a lot with OFWs, of Filipinx migrant workers. Can you tell us a little bit more how you wrote or how you casted for Maya, and how you approached her character for the film, and what you were looking for?
Yeah, I think that I had a high bar because I wanted an actor who would be able to sing everything live, not lip sync. She should, not only be an actress who you could feel the emotions, like the heartache and the sacrifice with a lot, because it's a lot of her face is in the film. And lastly, she had to sing En Vogue, but be all four singers of En Vogue, which is a very hard song to sing. And we actually had an open casting call. We had a casting director, saw probably 100 Filipina actors, and Francesca Farr, she was an actor I had known of in the Philippines, and she was a personal friend of mine, but she had given up acting for many years when she moved to the United States. So I told her, I'm like, can you please, if you think about acting again, can you audition for this? I just audition, please. Because I knew that she was talented, and I knew that she had the skills, and she knocked it out of the park. She really did. She was one of the only people who could actually hit that song 100%. And and yet she also felt the character so deeply, because that is also her story, like leaving her family behind, moving to the United States. She's only been here for a few years, and having that struggle of being an artist, and she also is a songwriter. So having all these things inside of her, and yet, pursuing a dream here in the United States and then leaving her family behind.
Mm-hmm. And before we wrap up, let's talk about that last scene. And, it's very open-ended, but it was very wonderful to see. What is your interpretation of that last scene? Or what was the final message that you wanted to impart to the audience with that?
I want to ask Anthea what her interpretation is, because I want to keep my intention, because as a director, like, I want the audience to come up with their own interpretation, but I will say what I want the audience to be left by. I would love Mike and Anthea to say what their interpretation is.
That she's in another realm, another place, that she can only just connect with her daughter, her kid. Like that was it. It was just, and then she just floats away. Like that's mine. Like, you know what I mean? If she wasn't, it was just, there's nothing else that mattered. It was just through music, through without without those physical boundaries, you're still connected. And that's my interpretation of it. I'm gonna cry now. I don't even know why. It's the time before FaceTime and stuff like that. So you can, that is why. Like I think for me.
Yeah, for me, it's similar in tone to what Anthea already said. I think it's just music takes you beyond this realm, right? I mean, that's why I like all art. That's what takes you beyond this particular state that we're in. I mean, it's so hard, like not harsh, but just stagnant. This entire movie, she's stagnant. It's the time, and it's like a musical, right? That's when the song comes on, that's how it feels. So sometimes it's so fun to not just be literal, because she is flying, and then in this case literally, but she's flying. She's sharing a piece of herself with her daughter that throughout the film has been dark, and it's been a little bit dreary and stagnant. So for me, I love stuff like that, because and it's hard to end the short without the full, because there's so much stuff that we could delve into Maya and that relationship that I just thought there's no other way to end it in a way to me, just take it beyond the realm of realistic and show what's in her heart.
And I love their answers, so all I want to add to that is that what music is to me is kind of like how I felt when I watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for the first time. You see that elevator up in the sky, and you feel magic, and you feel that anything is possible, and you feel love and connection. And I kind of wanted to do that for this film and for her.
Wow, that's great. And can you tell our CAAMFest audience how they could keep tabs with the film, and if there are any upcoming screenings that they should be on the lookout for?
For sure. So aside from showing at CAAMFest, we're also showing all month at LA Asian Pacific Film Festival until the end of October. And in November, we're going to be at Hawaii International Film Festival and others. And it's a lot of, you can catch the film, and hopefully it does a tour all over. We have a Facebook page. It's just look for Harana, or its previous title, A Song for Myself. My Instagram is @Marie_Jamora. And I would like Mike and Anthea to share their social media.
Mine is at official Anthea.
And I'm at MR Rosete, MRROSETE.
Or Mr.
Or Mr. Rosete.
That's great. Thank you so much, Marie, Michael, and Thea, for spending time with us and for sharing your insights on this great film. And, this is which is a very beautiful ode to Philippine ex-migrant workers around the world. So thank you very much for spending time. And sadly, everyone, we're out of time, but I'd like to bring Ali back on screen one more time and thank each and every one of you, my incredible guests, for being part of CAAMFest Forward. And if you enjoyed what you saw and want to support CAAM and other future programs, please consider joining us as a member or make a donation, and click the above link above the player for more information. Maraming salamat. Please enjoy the rest of the festival and take care. Happy Filipino American History Month, everyone.